Great morning, everyone, and welcome to the Influence Sessions for the franchise industry. We've got a great panel lineup today, and there's quite a few of you watching already, so welcome. If you are watching via our live web page, which is meetthefranchisor.com, please just type in the Q&A box below your name and say hi. We'd love to give you a shout out a little bit later on. Now, I'd like to introduce the panel today, but first of all, let's talk about the topic. We're looking at the best practice for franchise support systems. Now, this is a really important model to get right for your franchise group, and I believe we've created a really interesting panel to help support you in that today. So with no further ado, let's get going. So myself, my name's Emma Monro. I am the CEO of Yossum. We deliver support systems for franchise groups, which includes training and company-wide meetings, all via this platform of Google Hangouts. We also own meetthefranchisor.com, which is a new platform which gives you a free directory listing and a free interview on this very platform. Now we've got Nikki Ellison. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Emma. Hello, everyone.
Hi. And Nikki's based in Omaha, Nebraska, in the States. Nikki, would you mind telling us a little bit about what you do and who you are?
I'm the co-founder for the Franchise Success Institute. We are a coaching firm that has created a certified executive and leadership coach in the franchise world certification. And the goal of it is to share leadership strategies for franchises to help you grow and prosper.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on your Memorial Day holiday of all things, so thank you.
Thank you.
Now we've got Len Ferguson from Finn Franchise Brokers based in Brisbane. Good morning, Len.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you. Len, would you mind telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
We're actually, well, I'm the co-founder of Finn Franchise Brokers and Finn Business Sales in Australia. We're the largest business sales agents in Australia. We've got over 30 offices around the country. And all of our offices are franchise offices. So all of our guys are franchisees that run their businesses around Australia.
Excellent. So, Len, I believe you'll have a very interesting viewpoint as both a franchisor and a franchise broker dealing with lots of other models as well.
Yep, correct, we do. So we definitely have a very different insight.
Excellent. Looking forward to hearing your views today. Now we've got Kelly Grace from Volano Solutions, who is also based in Omaha, Nebraska. Welcome to the panel, Kelly.
Thanks, Emma. I appreciate you orchestrating this call.
Excellent. Excellent. Would you mind telling us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Kelly Grace. I work for a small software company based in Omaha called Volano Solutions. We created a mobile app last year called Action Card, which we're selling into brands globally, which is essentially a mobile audit tool that field managers use when inspecting their franchisees for best practices and standards compliance. And so that's gotten me into more of a consultative role as I work with franchisors in writing standards and helping marry their operations manuals with their field standards and helping drive consistency at all of their locations. And so we're a technology/consultant, and we're working with some pretty nice brands right now, but we're fairly young. We just launched the tool last year.
Fantastic. And I met Kelly in New Orleans earlier this year, so it was good to meet Kelly there at the International Franchise Association conference and had a good look at his product, and it's very, very nice. I'd suggest checking it out. Now I'd like to introduce John Swete Kelly, from the principal of Crow Horworth in Brisbane, who has a beautiful software to share with us and his insights on best practice for franchise support systems. Welcome, John.
Hi, Emma. Thanks a lot for the introduction. Hi, guys. Welcome to today's presentation. Emma, it's great to join you and everyone else who's on the conference call. Guys, we specialise in developing software solutions for franchises so they can evaluate their performance. So creating a visual scorecard which represents both the financial and non-financial metrics. There are two products, Open Measures, which www.openmeasures.com, which allows you to compare your performance against other franchisees if you're within a group, and this is used extensively across the retail, legal, financial planning, fast food outlets, for example, real estate, for example. And then there's another product called Analysis One, so www.analysis-one.com, which allows you to measure your own performance and benchmark it again internally. So you can create your own financial scorecard and your non-financial scorecard from a blank canvas, and measure those metrics which are critical to your success moving forward. Thanks, Emma.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone, on the panel today. Now, we've had just a couple of people type into that Q&A box below. So hello to Sarah from Perth, Alex from New Orleans, John from Auckland in New Zealand. I've heard it's very, very cold over there at the moment. And Dominique from Adelaide. So welcome to those who have actually typed in. If you do have any questions throughout the session today, please type them in and I'll interrupt when appropriate and ask the question for you. So we have one big question for each of our panelists to answer today, which is, in your experience, because each of us do work in the franchise industry and we actually have one franchisor here as well, what is franchise support best practice? And second part of the question is, in real terms, what does it actually look like? So, Nikki, I'm going to start with you with the first part of the question. What do you believe is franchise support best practice?
Thanks, Emma. Franchise support best practice in our world is those practices which support a franchise from the coaching standpoint, so that the franchisor can really assist this franchisee in being as productive and as profitable as possible. So what we do, we work with an exclusive coach training program with the franchises to improve their financial performance, franchise satisfaction, and brand reputation. And what that looks like is really working with the front line of coaches inside the franchisor, or those area developers that are going to work with the franchisees, ensuring leadership strategies and best practices to transfer them out into the field and into the franchise. And so really, as a holistic, it's just kind of that way to transfer the knowledge and the systems of the franchise to actual delivery of the franchisee.
Excellent. And so, in your experience, Nikki, in real terms, what does that look like from a franchisor's perspective? How does it actually assist them to help their franchisees perform better?
Basically what that's going to look like is it begins with a three-day program if we do it on-site for a larger franchise. We have a process that we do over the telephone. It's a telecall program that is a 15-week program, and we create a certified franchise executive and leadership coach program, and through that the front line is certified to work with those franchisees. So then what it looks like is, as part of this process where they become certified coaches, we have those coaches identify what the top 3 problems are of their particular franchise clients, and we work with them to create measurable impact into solving those problems. So in other words, for example, we might work with a franchise whose number 1 problem is maybe developing their territory, and so we'll help those coaches develop a custom-specific territory development program so that the results across all franchisees become more consistent and more profitable.
Excellent. And that actually falls in line with something that I discovered at the IFA conference, Nikki, is that there was a certain company, who I won't name names, who had an amazing franchise support system, which is one of the reasons why I chose that topic for today. And one of their strategies was to actually pull their top 20% out of their stores and into a workshop like what you're talking about, not only to coach them, but to reward them. for being the top 20%, to give them that contact with top-level management that as a brand grows, they may not necessarily get that top-level contact. Is that what you're talking about?
It is in part. What we really know is that the problems that our coaching program tends to solve are where companies are having some inconsistencies across their franchisees. We help them really look at the root cause. So it could be with those top 20%, or it may be with really all of your franchisees. Coaching is a process that helps the good get better. It's not a process whereby we may be having compliance issues that we need to deal with, or those other things. We know that the area developers are very busy wearing all different kinds of hats. We know that they oftentimes kind of reach their limits with their tools. We know that they get very stretched thin. So to your point, working with the top 20% to really help grow them is a phenomenal thing to do. But it's not just limited to the top 20%. But it is very different than more of a compliance role.
Absolutely, and you're definitely right in that area developers have a huge responsibility and a huge varying topics to cover with their franchisees that they look after, don't they?
They do, and giving them very broad tools that they can take and harness for their own particular use gives them a very solid foundation for addressing the coaching needs of their franchisees, and really helps support them. You know, one of the most common things that we hear from the folks that we work with is, I've got some franchisees and they're just not coachable. Now, in some cases, it's because they are very high-performing folks, and so they feel like, well, we already know how to do things. Maybe in some cases, they're just plain not coachable. But I do know that when you train somebody with very solid foundational coaching skills and you give them the tools to support the franchisees, that they can develop the system based on their franchisees' top problems, and by solving those problems can go a long ways towards really growth and prosperity for the franchisee and the franchisor.
Absolutely. Len, as a franchisor, I'm going to bring you into this conversation and get your thoughts on what Nikki's proposed.
Yeah, I think what she's saying is 100% right. I think that we can only go on what we do in here and what I've seen in other franchise groups, and you definitely need to have a coaching mentality with franchisees. I think a lot of situations happen where a lot of franchisors that I've seen sometimes treat their franchisees like employees, and that can have a negative effect on the way they feel about their business. They're definitely got to be treated as business owners and then and managed as such, and they've got to have that feeling that it is their business and they are running it. We see that a lot in the industry, where some support staff will go in and more or less treat that franchisee like their subordinate, and that's why they lose touch with that franchisee and lose their power of influence over that franchisee.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for those insights today, Nikki. I mean, as you said, you're working with numerous brands, so you obviously see the behind the scenes and the outcomes from that franchise support system.
Correct. And you know, it's one of those things that to Len, really being able to delineate and approach those franchisees in a different manner, you know, creating the kind of environment where it is a true coaching relationship to help them prosper. It's really interesting to me to hear the feedback from those corporate franchisors in how much better their relationships get with their franchisees and how much better their results get once you really switch over to a really solid coaching program. So
absolutely, definitely. So thank you for that, Nikki, and thank you for your insight. We really appreciate it. Now I'm going to jump back to Len now. And Len, I want to get your answers on this from a franchisor's perspective, but later on in the session we'll get your insights into the other brands that you work with and, you know, some excellent things that you've seen in that realm. So the first question is, in your experience, what is the franchise support best practice look like?
I can probably comment on what we did. We sort of, when we approached this business and designed the model that we wanted, we sort of broke down all our skills, the skill sets that we wanted our franchisees to portray in their day-to-day activities. And so we sort of broke them down. It was quite an elaborate task to do that. And we work on competencies. So we work with our franchisees and coach them on their competencies based on the skill sets that are actually that are put down in front of them. And that seems to help us work with them to help them manage their business better, because they sort of, once they get to understand what the core competencies that they need to achieve are, what the skill sets they need to achieve are, and how that affects their profit, a lot of the times they actually self-manage those and they come to us looking for help. So I think that one of the key things I've seen with a few other franchise networks is that they don't really define exactly what they want that business owner to do. So, and I found that's worked amazingly well for us by defining exactly what the key skills are, what they need to achieve, you know, virtually within their business day to day, and then how they're actually going on each of those competencies that they need to achieve and how that affects their profit, has helped us immensely to get better results from our franchisees. We also get them together 4 times a year, which is it's an easy feat for us because we're not a large franchise system. So we get face-to-face 3 times a year for a 2-day conference, and we call it a sales conference. And at those conferences, we actually we do a lot of KPI sessions where we measure results. So basically, the guys that are doing really well, they get the pat on the back from their peers because they can see their results up in lights on the screen up in front of the room. The guys that are sort of still emerging in their business, they can get coached by their colleagues. So they actually seek out their colleagues that are doing really well and ask them questions about how they're doing really well. And generally, it all comes back to those core skills and competencies that I talked about at the start. They sort of go back to those, and what we find in the end is that their colleagues are starting to coach them, not only us. So they get sick of our voice at the front of the room all the time, but their colleagues start coaching them. So their fellow franchisees, I mean by that, they start coaching them and working with them and helping them achieve better goals. I see that as the key to your network really growing close and working together for everyone's benefit.
Len, we've just had a question come in from Sarah in Perth. Hi, Sarah. And it was, how do you get the franchisees to come to you? Is that part of your culture that you've established from the very beginning?
Yep. We have right at the very beginning, I suppose. What we actually talked about is at the start of every one of our meetings, we actually put up what our core, I suppose, values are and what we're here for. So, and I think we try to remind everybody what we're doing it for. So when we stand up in front of the room, we go, okay, guys, we're having these meetings, and what we're here for is franchisee profitability. So that's the first thing we announce with every single meeting that we do. So, and I said every decision that we make, everything that we actually work on is all about improving franchisee profitability. And I suppose when we do that, they get the sense that we're working with them to help them achieve the results that they're looking for within their business. And there's sometimes with franchise, once we do that, they become more engaged. I think they become more engaged in the process, and the key to that engagement is they think that you're doing the right thing by them as well, and hopefully that's what you're doing as a franchisor. But because in the end, if they do really well, the franchisor doesn't have to worry about their own bottom lines and profitability. It actually comes with them doing really well. So that's the way we do it. Is we really drive that engagement, that team environment. We really push that team environment within our group.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that insight into, you know, the back end of an actual franchise group. So that's been fascinating. Does anyone else have any comments on what Len's just discussed?
Emma, I think it was great in what Len mentioned there around the culture of the KPIs and the self-supporting networks that develop where people, once they've got information flowing through, and able to support each other. strongly support that transition of culture and support that starts to develop once people start getting feedback.
Exactly. Very good. So thank you for that insight, Len. We really, really appreciate it.
No worries.
Excellent. Now, Kelly, I'm going to ask you for your insights, because you've been working with franchise groups for a little while now, and you have a bit of a different angle on how you deal with them and on what level you deal with them. Would you mind giving us your insights into what franchise models, not names, but some franchise support systems that you've seen that you admire and like?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard a lot of great stuff from Nikki and Len already. They're stealing some of my material, so you know, I think to be very general, and Len put a finer point on it. It starts with communication. I've seen with the clients that we work with, and I have 8 years of experience in the franchise world. Frequent and clear communication is always really key. Setting expectations, having measurable outcomes in the way that you would manage people. And Len said this as well, but they're not people that you manage, they're partners that you're in business with. And for me, the most effective communication always has as its central point that franchisee's profitability. If they see that you have their best interests in mind and are looking at their bottom line, it creates more buy-in. As far as franchise support systems that I think work well, the company that I worked for, it was a 220 location franchisor in the automotive parts distribution business, and they created a franchise action committee. And so we had some of our best owners from each region that were in charge and given more autonomy and in charge of helping us communicate to the network. And so if we had to push for something that was unpopular, or we had to do anything that required getting buy-in from the network, it was always more effective when it came from a peer than when it was mandated by corporate. And so I think franchisors that understand that are going to do well. Specifically at the IFA convention that I met you at, Emma, there was one company, it's an American printing company called Alpha Graphics, and they had their chief operating officer, a guy named Dave Buzza, on, and he spoke in one of the breakout sessions. And he said, and I don't know if this, someone would probably want to check this or not because it's out there, but he said when they recruit franchisees, they don't expect ROI for 5 years. That's the level of investment they put into finding the right owners and then throwing as much support as possible at them after they've scrutinized candidates to get exactly who they want that they know will follow their model. And I think that's part of it. Good support comes on the heels of due diligence on both the prospective franchisee and the franchisor. So if you invest in identifying and finding the right kind of people that will understand your model and adhere to your standards, you're in a position where you can be more proactive and add product line and do more dynamic things, and it's less about herding cats to an extent. And so
really what you're saying there, Kelly, is that your franchise support model starts even before recruitment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's getting the right network in there, getting the right people, and having very well defined standards that you communicate clearly early on and often, and that you continually train for, so that there's no ambiguity about what the tactics are that are going to most likely lead to profitability. Obviously, there's never any guarantee, but that's the whole franchise model. You have a system. You're selling a system. So the degree to which your owners adhere to that system is a great predictor of success, and that's what my company is pretty heavily involved in, helping even well-established franchisors get better adherence at all of their franchisee locations to their standards.
Well, anything to help their area developers is a good thing, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that's such a key role too. That the people you have out in the field is the face of your company. That might be the only person that your franchisee sees outside of the convention, depending on your size.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Kelly, for your contribution today and your insights. That was really interesting. Did anyone else take any interesting notes so far from our conversation? No one wants to put their hand up. Nikki, I saw you writing notes before. What has come out for you so far?
You know, for me, and part of where Kelly and I have met and have really developed a great alliance to help both of our clients is the fact that, you know, to his point, the degree to which the franchisees adhere to the system, and if the system is a well-founded system, that the growth and development happens. And as Len and John have both said, that what is really key here is making sure that when the franchisees are profitable, then everybody can be profitable. And it's a true win-win. And a lot of what Kelly does and the work that they do with their clients and really helping them identify and track, you know, what are those factors that make the various franchisees unique but specific that need to be implemented at their systems, and have a way to track that is just phenomenal. I've just been really impressed with the work that they've done.
Excellent. So now that we'll move on to John, because we haven't heard much from you, John, before, and I know you've got some really interesting things to talk about today. So, John, I'm going to ask you the question, what do you see franchise best practice model being, and in the real world, what does that look like?
Thanks, Emma. Guys, I'm certainly thrilled with what I'm hearing coming from you know, the other speakers, Kelly, Nikki, and Len. It's been great, especially Kelly with the background where saying success is based on the cultural side of things. I can't but agree with you entirely there. You know, if we've got that cultural map and we understand exactly what the requirements are, then everything naturally flows from that, the mentoring model, the coaching model, and then through to the KPIs and to drive that profitability. So yeah, that foundation is critical. It's interesting. I was talking to a very good friend of mine who is a franchisee, and he's just finished 5 years in the franchise that he's in, and he said he feels as if he's only just finishing his apprenticeship now. So your observation and quote that you made is very appropriate. I guess where we see it now is there's the two dimensions of once you've got the culture correct, and that translates down through into behaviours in the organisation, which drive all aspects, whether it be the marketing, the engagement, the compliance processes, the reporting processes, then it's necessary to start to try and capture that and provide a very simple framework for people to be able to understand where they're at and the implications of their decisions. In doing that, what we find often is people have blind spots in their behaviours. We naturally have a tendency, some of us might be great in sales or marketing, others may be great in compliance or process control. So by building a scorecard, and I'll use the cliche, the balanced scorecard of the franchise, then we have a really good way of keeping people alert to those things that sometimes they may tend to ignore or don't have in their consciousness at all times. And the thing is that scorecard should actually represent all dimensions of the business. It doesn't need to be complicated. It should reflect reality. It should be simple, and it should be easy to capture information on. We have some franchisees where they're in the fast food area and they're capturing data from point of sales on a daily basis just so as they can monitor. Others will do it on a weekly or a monthly basis. Some will do it on a quarterly. It depends on the dynamics of the business that are important. Also,
absolutely. So, yes. John, just to interrupt there, a question that's come from the floor is that, so you're suggesting that numbers should be used as a form of communication to the franchisees?
Oh, exactly, Emma. Yeah, most certainly. They, the numbers tell a story, and they should be in a trend, and they provide the foundation for when Nikki was talking before about coaching. We can use that as a foundation and leverage points. Coming back to what Len was talking about, building self-support systems and mentoring groups. Again, those numbers are there. We can, by looking at it, we can look across the room and see Len over there, with best practice in a certain way. We can go and work with him, understand that, and translate that model into the other franchisees. So we actually use a framework, and you're aware of it, Emma. 254 is the thing. Their strategy only has two outcomes. You're either going to influence profitability, or you're going to influence the capital invested. So as you make a decision, why am I making this decision? Is it to improve profitability, or is it to grow the capital base in which I'm working? Those two strategies translate into 5 parts of the business financially that you can influence. You can only influence revenue, the cost of sales, the overhead expenses, the working capital, and the non-fixed assets. So as you're making decisions now, you can take it from what am I doing? I'm driving profitability. Why am I driving profitability? Why am I going to influence revenue or cost of sales or overhead expenses? And there are 4 key ratios that measure performance. So that gives you your financial framework to be able to evaluate your business. Very, very simply. Those are
Sorry to interrupt, John. We've just got a couple of more questions flowing in, but we may actually do a separate hangout, if that's okay with you, to focus on the 254 model, because it's a great representation of what to look for when you're making decisions. So I think that would be a really interesting topic. Does anyone else feel that would be of value?
Emma, I think it would be great to do that, and I would love to see that and to hear more about that. You know, that's something that we see all the time with what we refer to as our assessment triangle, or excuse me, our franchise assessment triangle. Those financials, the operations, and leadership. And we know that when you can get in and you can really work with folks on 1 or 2 key areas based on that kind of analysis, that 254 model that John's talking about, you know, you can have a huge impact on franchise operations.
Absolutely. John, would you be open to doing that in a more detailed way? Because you went over it at dinner a couple of weeks ago and it was just fascinating.
Yeah, love to, Emma. I'd love to share that sort of information with people. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, Kelly's actually got a question for you, John. So I'll let you ask that, Kelly.
Yeah, and you kind of did a minute ago, or started to, with the 254, which I'd very much be interested in hearing about. But I'm all about KPIs as well, and so what would you say in regard to, since this is about franchising, what would you say are the 4 or 5 most important KPIs the franchisor might want to communicate to the franchisee?
All right, coming back to your profitability is a key thing, and we're working together. So measures around growth, so new prospects, what's in the pipeline, what's the conversion rate, and how's that conversion rate translating through into profitability? Because if we can grow that pipeline and we can demonstrate growth in the organisation, and we've got the process to convert that to profitability, then not only are we growing our own franchise, but we're growing the franchise business as a whole, and that adds value to us when we're looking at, you know, a succession plan. So that pipeline becomes really critical. Depending upon the other what the nature of franchise is, there may be certain requirements. I'm thinking financial planning now, where compliance metrics are critical to ensure the legal compliance of the business with the statutory requirements, and those are necessary just to ensure that the integrity of the business is there, and it's not, the franchise is not exposed by lax practices in some areas.
Okay.
Excellent. Len, what are your thoughts on what John's presented so far, or discussed so far?
I think it's key to helping the franchisees understand their business a lot better, helping the franchisor understand their business a lot better. For us, KPIs, they form a fabric of our business, and I suppose I don't think we ever have a meeting where we don't discuss some kind of KPIs based around the performance of our businesses. So yeah, I'm a strong supporter that you need to be working with KPIs and using them in the manner of managing your business, every day.
Yes, yes. And what I love about what John's saying is that it needs to be communicated on a increasingly regular basis with how fast business needs to adapt and change and self-regulate, really.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for everyone for joining us this morning. I'm sure we could all speak for much, much longer, but we promised that we'd finish at 40 minutes, and we will keep our promise. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the Dropbox below, and I will send them out to the panelists to answer for themselves. Thank you so much, panelists, for joining us today, Nikki, Len, Kelly, and John. Any last words from each of you? Nikki.
I would just like to say thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure. And John, Len, Kelly, it has been great getting to know you guys a little bit more, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Excellent. Len, thank you so much for joining us today.
No worries. Nice to meet you all, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Excellent. Kelly, thanks again for hanging out.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for including me on the call. I had a great time and got some great ideas from sharp panelists you had here.
Yeah, yes, it was an amazing conversation, so thank you, everyone. And John, this is John's very, very first hangout, so welcome.
Thanks, Emma, and it's been a pleasure, and thank you very much to Nikki, Len, and Kelly for sharing their thoughts and ideas around the success of the franchise. It's been a great experience and some great knowledge transfer there. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you once again for watching this session. If you are watching it after it's been recorded, then you can still ask questions on our YouTube channel or over at meetthefranchisor.com. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next month. Bye.